Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix, has been called one of the most divisive movies of the year. Some people feel like it's an excellent look into the lack of empathy in society these days, while other people feel like it justifies violence. What do I think as an integrative mental health physician? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down specific scenes of the film and my thought process as I watched it, as well as certain things that we could learn. By the way, there will be spoilers. I'm Dr. Karthik Ramanan. I help ambitious individuals and self-criticism with tools and strategies to create optimal everyday mental health. So if you know that you need to silence that negative voice in your head, get out of your own way, and really lead a purpose-driven life, well, I'm here for you. I encourage you to hit that subscribe button right now. If you haven't seen my non-spoiler version, I would encourage you to watch that first, and I'll link to it in the description below. The reason is that I give my thoughts on Joker's diagnosis and things that the film portrayed on a larger scale, but this video is going to be a little bit more of the scene-by-scene breakdown. Also, another thing I'd like to acknowledge off the bat is that there are a lot of theories about the ending of the film and what the implications are for the entire film. I'll link to one of my favorite analyses down in the description as well. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more surface level. It's going to be the specific scenes. But at the end, I'll also give my take on the end. One theme throughout all of these scene breakdowns is that the story that we tell ourselves is powerful. And think about that in our day-to-day life. The stories that we have about ourselves really dictate our experience in life. And really, Arthur's experience of life is incredibly driven by the story he tells himself. In the beginning of the film, Arthur has the store sign stolen from him by a bunch of kids, and he chases after them down an alleyway. They hit him with the sign and proceed to beat him up. You immediately have this sense, at least I did, of just empathizing for him. Here's a guy that's just trying to do his best and make ends meet, and this is what happens. And that does happen to us, but what really struck me was soon after that, when he was describing what happened, he just said, "They're just a bunch of kids." Now, here's something that I want you to really think about. What we experience in life is very much the things that we do and also the things that we allow to happen. We're either taking action on it or we're allowing it to happen. And in this case with Arthur, he's basically justifying that behavior against him as they're just kids. That could be for a variety of reasons. We find out later in the movie that he has an abusive past. So it could simply be that he is used to that behavior being inflicted upon him, and he doesn't think twice about it when those kids beat him up. It's really unfortunate, and certainly people that are in that situation, one of the real benefits of therapy is to start to recognize that accepting that type of behavior is not okay, and then just ways of how to move past that. Another scene that really stuck out at me was when he was fired from his job, and you can just see the suppressed emotions on his face. I've seen that as well with patients, not to that degree, but you know when you're asking a question and you're not really getting what somebody's true feelings are, and you can see that in Arthur's face. And I thought Joaquin Phoenix did an incredible job there. And again, here, it's a prime example of suppressing emotions. Now, in the short term, to diffuse a potentially, argumentative situation or a violent situation, that can be a good thing. But certainly for the long term, suppressing emotions never, ever, ever results in a positive outcome, both in terms of your mental health as well as your physical health. There's the scene in the beginning of the movie where he's talking to his therapist, and he says, "Nobody ever saw me." And he proceeds to say, "You're not listening to me." And really, this is kind of indicative of the whole film, right? This is a film about the lack of understanding, the lack of empathy. And I think there's this perception that if you work with a mental health professional, that this is what you're going to, because that's really what's portrayed in movies and TV shows. And I'm not saying that every mental health professional is extraordinary. It's just like every type of service out there. There's some good ones and there's some not so good ones. But really, there are people that want to listen to you. There are people that want to help you. It happens to be, in this case, he's working with somebody who is not really listening to him, and he does not feel validated. He feels like he is not seen. He feels like he is invisible. And that is really the catalyst for a lot of things that happen in the future for him. If you remember from my first video, all of us need connection and we need purpose. And if he feels like he's not being seen, he has no connection. And that is something to be really mindful of for ourselves, that it doesn't matter whether we're extroverted or introverted, we all need actual, true, meaningful connection. There's a scene later in the movie after Arthur has killed the men on the train. He sees somebody in the clown mask in the car driving past him. And I felt in that moment, that was the first time that Arthur felt that somebody saw him. And unfortunately, it happened to be in the context of something negative. We're all craving to be seen. We're all craving connection. We're all craving purpose. And he felt that his life was creating purpose as he saw all these people wearing those masks, all these people rising up against what they felt was unjust. And even though he got that attention through murder, to him, that connection and that importance was more important, as we saw with his future actions. Later in the movie, when he's at the opera house and in the bathroom and he confronts Mr. Wayne, I thought that was a very heart-wrenching moment, because here he is waiting his whole life to meet his father, or who he thinks is his father. And you can only imagine all the things that he'd want to say in that moment. And I was very eager. And of course, as he's getting dismissed, the way Joaquin Phoenix delivers the line, "Maybe a hug, Dad," it was heart-wrenching, because the truth is many of us, whether we're dealing with mental illness or not, many of us growing up always crave the love of one of our parents even more so than the other. And it's not because we love one parent more than the other. It's because one parent we perceive gave us less love than the other, so we crave that love a little bit more. And in the case of Arthur, it was clearly his father's love who he craved the most. So one question that I often ask my patients is, whose love did you crave? Because one of the things that we start to discover as we talk more is that a lot of actions that are taken in adulthood are almost the inner child acting in order to seek love from the parent or somebody that reminds us of that parent figure. So it's just something to keep in mind for yourself as you're going forward. Now, I don't remember exactly when Arthur said this in the movie, but he said, "It's hard to be happy all the time." And that really got me thinking, even in the theater as I was watching it for the first time. When he says that, the immediate thought I had was, are we supposed to be happy all the time? Or that's really what our society almost wants us to think, right? Think about the advertisement that we're bombarded with, or social media, people posting the highlights of their life. It's so easy to look at that and say, wow, that person's life is perfect. They're so happy, when in reality, they are dealing with so much. And I've seen this for myself because I've had patients who have then followed me on social media, and I've gotten a chance to kind of see what they post, and I know what's going on in their lives, right? And they have more of a cleaned up version that's on social media, and it's no fault of theirs. It's simply we feel more comfortable sharing the highlights, but that makes us feel like we're supposed to be having highlights all the time, and that's just not realistic. In fact, I would challenge you, if you really want to be happy, feel and experience everything that goes on in your life, the highs, the lows, and you'll truly find a different level of contentment when you find acceptance. And then the Murray scene. That was obviously the climax of the movie, the real heart-pounding moment where you're like, okay, is he going to kill himself on TV? Or you had this gut feeling like he was going to kill Murray on TV. He says, I have nothing left to lose. Nothing can hurt me. And I want you to think about that for a second. I have nothing left to lose. People are willing to do crazy things when they feel they have nothing left to lose, because we often take action keeping in mind what the downside is, what the risk is. So we put the brakes on ourselves in life. Now, he obviously took that and went to horrible, violent lengths, again, because he realized that the only time in life that he had connection and purpose was through violence. But also think about it from our own standpoints. What are some of the greatest things that you have achieved in your life? I would almost venture to say that you took the chance on maybe asking somebody out or maybe making that career change, sometimes when you feel like you have nothing to lose. So the question is, how can we harvest that and use it in a positive direction, saying, what is my real risk here if I take that chance? Again, only in a positive direction, folks. What is that risk that I can take to do something more beneficial for others, beneficial for myself, for my family? Ease off the brakes a little. But the other thing he says during the show is nobody thinks what it's like to be others. I mean, we spend so much time worrying about ourselves and what's going on. We're worried about what other people think of us. In reality, Other people are worried about what we think of them. And if we just spent a little bit more time listening and a little less time talking, we would start to discover the depth of character in the people around us. And you have to wonder, in Arthur's life, what would have happened if along the way, if the people at work had listened a little bit more, if, his mother had listened a little bit more, what might have changed? Now, the elephant in the room, the closing scene. Everything seemed to make sense in the movie. He escapes arrest because of the other people. Then you see him in Arkham Hospital again with a psychiatrist. He says, "You wouldn't understand." You see him walk out of the room with bloodied footprints, and you're wondering, wait a second, what just happened here? Well, one thing that is true is that we have seen on various levels, small levels of delusion, like when he's watching in the beginning of the film, the Murray show, and he personifies Murray as his father, right? And then you see him snap out of it and see what actually happened on TV, to some of these more elaborate sequences of his girlfriend, who turns out that the lady down the hall, played by Zazie Beetz, was not his girlfriend. She was terrified when he was just sitting in her room, later on in the movie. That was another example of, well, how much can we trust the narration, so to speak, of Arthur Fleck? I think he did make up maybe a lot of it, maybe all of it. Maybe Arthur was this concoction that Joker made in his head to justify really why he became who he did. Whether it all happened or not, we don't know. That's left up to interpretation. But I would say this is really where it becomes fascinating to me, okay? You could say, all right, he has delusions, maybe he's schizophrenic, etc., and just dismiss it. But here's the reality. The past really has a strong influence on how we feel, think, and believe and act as far as moving into the future. A lot of us feel like it's because of our past that we are the way we are. What you might find interesting is that the parts of the brain that are responsible for processing memories are the same parts of the brain that light up on scans when we explore imagination. So think about that. Memories and imagination are almost the same thing, because the reality is right now in this moment is the only thing that is real, so to speak. And I'll prove it to you. I'm pretty sure you know somebody that just makes up what happened to them, right? Like you're like, listen, I saw what happened. That is not what that person said. That happens. So if that happens time and time again, now to that person who is making up what happens, making up the facts, that becomes their reality. And I think that's exactly what Joker is experiencing here. Is if he's not schizophrenic, he is certainly very capable of creating a reality that is in his imagination, but is so real that it becomes his memories as well. So what can we learn from that? What we can learn from that is that if we visualize the future that we want, and we start to believe the future that we want, that things will happen, when I'm talking about vision boarding, even if you want to go law of attraction, all that stuff, right? Those can be very powerful in terms of creating almost memory-like imprints of the future, so that we live according to the empowering beliefs that those future visions can afford us. One of the things that when I talk to people, the biggest challenge that they have is believing that they can change, believing that they can lose the weight, believing that they can silence the negative voice in their head, believing that they can end the anxiety and just be healthy and happy, right? So the first step to making the changes to become healthy, turn off the negative voice in your head, it's to believe that you can. One of the things that's really powerful for that is visualizing your future. So I actually created a 7-day audio program to help you believe in your greatness, and use this technique really of visualizing and imagining the future in an empowering way, so that it's as strong as a memory and you start acting in accordance to that. Now, as of the time that I'm releasing this video, it's not available yet, but when it does become available, I'll be sure to link it in the description below. And you can always subscribe to follow future videos. You can catch it there. Question of the day: what did you think about the Joker movie? Let me know in the comments section below. Until next time, I believe in your greatness.